Let's talk to our political editor, Peter Cardwell, who joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Look, let's talk about Diane Abbott again. I mean, it is extraordinary. Diane Abbott has been around a very long time. Of course, the first black woman to be elected to the Houses of Parliament, a trailblazer in her time, absolutely. But now looking, well, frankly, rather stupid. After she's had the Labour whip withdrawn for a letter she's written to the Observer newspaper, which she's now says she apologises for and retracts, and apparently it was just a first draft, in which she claimed that Jewish people, the Irish and travellers and Roma and gypsies, gypsy people, that they were not victims of racism, they were only victims of prejudice. What do you make, first of all, of her claim that she had made, and that claim in the context of what we've seen with the Labour Party when she was Shadow Home Secretary and her big mate Jeremy Corbyn, and former lover, in fact, was Labour leader?
Well, clearly what she has written is absolute nonsense and deeply offensive to many, many people, not just people who are in those groups, but many other people as well. And rightly, the Labour whip has been removed from her. It's interesting because if she doesn't have the Labour whip, if she is a member of the Labour Party but not a Labour MP, well, she can't be selected to be a parliamentary candidate. And this is the next question for Keir Starmer, because she has represented her rock-solid, safe seat in Labour in Stoke Newington in North London there for, well, since 1987, when, as you say, she became the first black woman MP. And the big question for Keir Starmer is whether the whip is given back to Diane Abbott. Some people say, look, you know, she's apologised, what more can she do? Therefore, the whip should be restored at some point. But Keir Starmer has, of course, made clear and made sure that Jeremy Corbyn can't stand as a Labour MP in his seat, also in North London. So whether that now happens to Diane Abbott is the next test for him as leader of the Labour Party.
Well, the interesting thing, of course, is, I mean, look, what she said, I mean, I don't have an issue with people being offended by things. People are allowed to offend people. And I, as a general rule, if someone thinks something, I would rather they said it out loud. As long as they're not abusing someone in the street or sending threats to somebody, something against the law, I would rather know that's what they think. She kind of said the quiet bit out loud. This has been this whole big issue in the Labour Party, particularly under Jeremy Corbyn and the left-wingers who are obsessed with race. And I genuinely would use the phrase race baiter about it. She's obsessed. She tries to use race in a very negative way, I think. And this idea that, you know, that Jewish people, because they this phrase that she used, you know, sort of they appear to be white appearing people, that therefore they can't be victims of racism. When she has a very large Jewish population in her constituency, there are two recorded race attacks in her constituency against Jewish people every week, and yet she doesn't think this is an issue. But this says everything about that left wing of the Labour Party and the clear issue that they have in their victim Olympics of how they view Jewish people in this country.
Well, a lot of the left of the Labour Party, and I mean, this is the extreme left, really, it just doesn't like Jewish people. I mean, they're just anti-Semitic. And
let's just call it what it is. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And there has been a major problem with that, which, in fairness to Keir Starmer, he has done quite a lot to root out since he has been leader of the Labour Party. He has tried to change things. He has excluded people. He has got rid of people. There is still clearly a problem, though, when one of his MPs, although not with the Labour whip at the moment, says and feels she can write to a national newspaper with these sentiments, which are sort of not even worth engaging with. They're so ludicrous, they're so wrong, and they're so offensive, and they're just counter to history in terms of the Holocaust, in terms of
well, that's the thing. She wrote, in pre-civil rights America, Irish people, Jewish people and travellers were not required to sit at the back of the bus. In apartheid South Africa, these groups were allowed to vote. At the height of slavery, there were no white-seeming, that's the phrase, white-seeming people manacled on the slave ships. But, small matter of the Holocaust, in which, you know, in which Jewish people and traveller people were exterminated on an industrial scale as a deliberate act of policy. I mean, it's the stupidity is kind of the worst thing about this, the absolute ignorance, isn't it? But here's the thing. Lots of people are saying, oh, to Keir Starmer's credit. And we know that the moment he became Labour leader, he did immediately, you know, act to take on these issues and deal with anti-Semitism and make sure that Jewish people did feel that this Labour Party, as all parties should be open and safe for them. However, you know, in 2017 and 2019, he quite happily campaigned to put Jeremy Corbyn into office as Prime Minister and Diane Abbott as Home Secretary.
Yeah, and that is something that he will have to answer for, and I think a lot of people still feel very, very aggrieved about that. And it is clear, as we say, the Labour Party still has a problem with this. There's still pockets of the Labour Party, including one of its most well-known MPs in Diane Abbott, who hold these opinions. And she can say what she likes, so I want to disassociate myself from what I said. It was sent, it was an early draft, and I shouldn't have sent it. Excuses.
Yeah.
The fact is that she held at one point in the drafting process, she held those opinions, and that is outrageous.
But again, it's just the excuse, the apology is even more laughable than the original letter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can I also ask you about Dominic Raab? We just spoken at length with Nick Dubois, so we'll keep it brief. But in terms of, look, he's resigned. Basically, he said in an interview a few months ago, look, if there are any finding against me, I will resign. So he was basically hoist by his own petard on that front. Do you think that Rishi Sunak is weakened or strengthened by the departure of Dominic Raab?
I think it's probably weakened personally and politically because they are quite good friends. And of course, we remember in late August when things were so bad for Rishi Sunak, it was so clear that Liz Truss was going to win the Conservative leadership election. Dominic Raab was still out there flying the flag, saying Rishi Sunak should be Prime Minister. And he sent himself to political Siberia with the Liz Truss people, only to be brought back by Rishi Sunak, which he couldn't have predicted. So he is loyal to Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak allowed him to go on his own terms. He had that barnstorming resignation letter. He didn't sack him. He allowed him to resign. And I think we do need to remember that. I think Rishi Sunak is probably slightly weakened by this, but at the same time, his name is not one I've heard hugely in terms of judgment over the last few days. It's much more about Dominic Raab, unsurprisingly. That's
interesting, isn't it? And just finally, busy week ahead, already a very busy day today. We've got Foreign Secretary is going to be making a statement later today about Sudan, and we had that airlifting of British Embassy staff. No doubt they're looking at trying to get a safe land route out for hundreds, possibly even thousands of Brits and many other Westerners who are in the country. We've also got the illegal migration bill that's back in the House of Commons for its third reading on Wednesday. Then it goes to the House of Lords, where no doubt it'll be ripped to shreds, and we start all over again. We've got so many other things happening. Teachers' strike on Thursday. We've got over next weekend, the bank holiday weekend. Again, a week away after that, we've got the coronation. But next weekend, we've got the more NHS strikes. I mean, there is a lot in the Prime Minister's in tray, isn't there?
There certainly is, and he will be hoping that even though some of these events are perhaps not the most pleasant for him, including strikes making him not look brilliant, he'll be hoping the Dominic Raab affair will have a line drawn under it and that people can move on from that. Obviously, he said there'll be some reform to the process and so on. But yes, the Prime Minister has a lot to deal with this week, as has Westminster in general. We'll be covering it all here, of course.
Absolutely. Peter Cardwell, our political editor, thank you, as always, for joining us.